Next, let's look at carefully the example that I'm going to give of passive voice without by. So we look at some sentences. From the active to passive when we change, we are not going to use by. Okay, that's it. Study carefully. Study carefully. Study carefully. The following examples, study carefully, the following examples of passives. Examples of passives without by. Passives without by. We're going to look at passives without by. Let's look at it, okay? So what are we going to do? We're going to study carefully some examples of passive voice without by. We'll not be using this by. Okay? Now let's look at the examples I have here for you. 1. They elected him king. They. They elected him king. Okay. So here, they elected him king. That is an active voice. This is in the active. Now, we're going to change. They elected him king. We're going to change into passive voice, but we are not going to use by. How will we do it? He was elected king. He was. He was elected. He was elected king. But we do not use by in changing into passive voice. And this is passive voice. Passive voice. Okay, another sentence. Let's look at. They chose Mr. Advani chairman. They chose. That's the second one. They chose Mr. Advani. Mr. Advani, chairperson or chairman. Chairman. And that is in the active voice. The active. Active voice. Now, let's change into passive without using by. Okay? Mr. Advani was chosen chairman. Mr. Advani was chosen. Was chosen chairman. And that's a passive voice without using by. Okay? That is passive voice. Let's look at another sentence I have. We call the dog Spot. That's the active voice. We call the dog Spot. And that's the active voice. Active voice. Okay, now we're changing that into passive without by. Let's see. The dog is called Spot. We call the dog Spot, that's the active voice, and we are going to change this active voice into passive without by. Okay, so the dog is called. The dog is called Spot. That's in the passive voice without using by. Passive voice. Let's look at another sentence. They named their son Victor. At the fourth one, example, they named. They named their son Victor. They named their son Victor. That is in the active voice. That's in the active voice. Active voice. Now we're going to change this active voice into passive by not putting by. Their son was named Victor. That's all. Their son was named. Their son was named Victor. Without writing by. Their son was named Victor, and that's the passive voice. Passive voice. We'll take another sentence. They called them cowards. They called them cowards. They called them cowards. And that's the active voice. They call them coward, that's the active voice. And now we're going to change into passive without adding by. They were called cowards. They were called. They were called cowards. They were called coward, and that's a passive voice. Passive voice. Finally, I'll give you a last sentence, and it says, they made Newton president of the Royal Society. Active. They made Newton president of Royal Society. They made Newton President of. President of Royal. President of the Royal Society. And that's it. They made Newton president of the Royal Society, and that is the passive, no, active voice. That's in the active voice. And now to change it to passive without by. Let's see. Newton was made president of the Royal Society. So what is the answer? Newton. Newton was made. Newton was made president. Newton was made the president of the Royal Society. Of the Royal Society. Without using by, we have done the passive voice. Look at it carefully. We have 6 sentences here where we have changed the active into passive without using by. Study carefully the 6 sentences. The passive is formed without by, active. They elected him king, active voice. They chose Mr. Advani chairman, active voice. We called the dog Spot, active voice. They named their son Victor, active. They called them cowards, active. They made Newton president of the Royal Society, active. Now we are changing all these 6 sentences into passive without by. They elected him king. Passive voice, he was elected king. They chose Mr. Advani chairman, active voice. We are making into passive. Mr. Advani was chosen chairman. We called the dog Spot, active. The dog is called Spot, passive. They named their son Victor, active. Their son was named Victor, passive voice. They called them cowards, active. They were called cowards, passive. They made Newton president of the Royal Society, active, passive. Newton was made president of Royal Society.